Welcome back to Growing Quality. My name is Elian and it's Friday again, so that means we got another week to review. Now, this week we have seen a bunch of interesting earnings with even more interesting reactions to them. And one of those was Robinhood, because if we look at the stock's reaction, we can see that the stock popped up an initial 7 to 9%. It peaked at about 9% up when the markets opened, but it traded down to being negative 3%. An interesting reaction. So in this video, we are going to see what happened there. So without any further ado, let's just dive straight into it. Okay, so before diving too deep into this earnings report, we want to start with laying the groundwork. So we want to look at the income statement first, and what we can see is that revenues increased by 40%. Now, in the following slides, we will dive into the separate revenue streams because on the transaction based, net interest based, there are a bunch of other line items, and we will see how those improved year over year. But what we can look at is the operation expenses because they are down, well, they are half of what they were last year, even slightly below half. And this is mainly due to the decrease in general and administrative expenses. They managed to pull this down 82%. That's an incredibly large number. 82%. That's amazing. Now, what they also did is increase marketing spend, and they increased this quite significantly on a percentage basis, although it's still not an all too big amount. I mean, they almost tripled it, if I can say it like that, but it's still only 67 million. So it's not too big of an expense. Now, what else do we see here? We can see that they came in with EPS numbers of 18 cents, while analysts were expecting 6 cents. So 6 cents expected and 18 cents delivered. Why is this stock not up an amazing amount? The guidance was also good, so it should be up, well, that 9% that it was at market open, right? So if we look into the revenue streams of the business, they were broken down into transaction-based, net interest revenues, and other revenues. And what we can see is that they almost all ticked up. In fact, when we look at transaction-based revenues, this number was up about 59% year over year. 59% increase in revenue-based or transaction-based revenues. I don't see how this is not good. But when we look into it, we might get a hint. Because option trading or revenues from option transactions was up almost 16%, equities 44%, and other, well, it's 1 million, but it's 11%. And now the big line item here is, of course, the cryptocurrencies. And this may, how do you say it? This may hold the truth as to why the stock sold up. Because revenues from, well, crypto based transactions was up 330%. Now, that's an incredibly high number, again, but it's crypto, it's cyclical. And that holds the key as to why I believe this stock sold off as well as it did, although it might not tell the entire story. Now, when we look into the net interest revenues, we can see that margin interest went up quite a bit. We can see that interest in corporate cash and investment went up, but, well, barely. Interest in segregated cash securities and deposits went up quite a bit. Cash sweeps went up. Security lendings, that went down. And the credit card, well, it wasn't existing a year ago, and now they have revenues from it. Now, what all these line items mean, I'm gonna explain in a later video because I'm currently researching Robinhood to make a full video about the company. So that video will probably be released Wednesday. And there I will also go through all these line items. But first, let's just continue with breaking down this earnings report for now. Okay, so as we just saw, the amazing increase in crypto based transactional revenues, we get this slide. And Here we can see how many cryptos Robinhood has under, well, safeguard, so under custody basically. And we can see that this is a quarter over quarter number, right? Don't mix it up with year over year. This is quarter over quarter. I also highlighted December 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. Bitcoin increased 67%. Dogecoin increased 122%. Ethereum 49% increases. This is the increases of, well, money or the value of the cryptocurrencies they are safeguarding. And of course, this has a lot to do with the run crypto has been on. But this highlights how much of a push comes just from the, well, from the increase in prices or valuations of those currencies, of those cryptos. It's actually kind of amazing. But then if we look at this slide, we can see the assets under custody for each of the asset types or asset classes. And we can see that equities, they increased by 47% year over year. We can see the cryptocurrencies again, 128% year over year. Options, well, maybe not the best measurement here, but they increased 200%. Cash held by customers by 75%. Now, I think that the cash held by customers has to do with the, well, with the cash sweep, that they can just store their money there and get interest paid on it. So there's no intention of investing it. But it's nice to know that that also increased 75%. And then receivables from customers, that went up quite a bit as well, 37%. Well, not the most interesting line item here in this analysis of the earnings, but good to know. Okay, so then the asset under management or assets under custody it is for this for Robinhood, and the changings or the changings in it, changes in it with the year over year numbers. So the beginning assets under custody were 102 billion going into Q1 of 2024, while last year that was 62.2 billion, so an increase of 65%. And deposits, they went from 4.4 billion to 11.2 billion, and then we also had net market gains. So what we can actually see here that net market gains weren't that big this quarter. They were 34%, but the money that was in the platform, that was higher by 65%. So, well, we could say relative underperformance to last year, maybe. Anyway, the quarter ended with almost $130 billion of assets under custody, and that's quite a sum. Now, in my video where I will dive into Robinhood, more of a company analysis, I will give you more explanations about this. But for now, this is just good to know. Okay. So then we have once more the transaction-based revenues, and we can see that from cryptocurrencies, the increase was 232%. That's a huge number. But they also stated below it that cryptocurrency revenues increased primarily driven by an 88% increase in the average notional trading volume traded per traded, and a 57% increase in the number of users placing cryptocurrency trades. So basically what they are saying here is that people that have been trading cryptos are now almost double as active in doing so as a year ago, and that we have over a 50% increase in people who are trying to trade cryptos. So what I think holds the key here is the run crypto has had, and we have seen how cyclical cryptos can be. And well, I don't mean to be too critical of crypto, but when that goes into a bear market, all the enthusiasm is gone. All of it. And since that is the reason why this company has been, well, have been beating their revenue numbers by such an extent, it's traceable to those cryptos. And that's why I think the company sold off or the stock sold off. That doesn't make this bad earnings because the earnings were incredibly well. But it is traceable back to the cryptocurrencies. And that is also where I want to show you something else. And what I want to show you is that here we have my website. And on my website, one thing I do is I post some articles taking a first critical look at the earnings report. Now, I wrote an article or a small article about the Robinhood earnings in which I thought they were really amazing. And I still believe so. You can say what you want to say about crypto, if it's good, if it's bad, that's all up to you. Fact of the matter is that they pulled in a lot of revenues from it. And that's reflected in the earnings report. Now, this article was written mainly on the letter to shareholders from Robinhood, but in it, I was already critical on the fact that with those increases in revenues, you have to wonder with Robinhood whether it's real revenues or if it's just based on a bump of enthusiasm from retail traders. Now, that might sound pessimistic on the company once again, which I am absolutely not. I can promise you that. I really like the company, and once again, I am really impressed by these earnings. But it's a fact you have to deal with. And once again, if it weren't the case, then the stock would have been at 10%. It would be up 10%. That's truly what this earnings release justified. Now, since we are on my website already, I'm gonna make a quick promotion on it, because if you want to see these articles, well, of course you can try and keep in check with my website, or you subscribe to my morning market feed, in which I send you a newsletter on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, in which I highlight some of the most notable news items, stock moves I've seen in the market. I try to take a bit of a skeptical take on it because, well, finance should be fun. That's the message I want to send. It's serious, but it should be fun, and some things make no sense. Now, why is it only on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday? Because on Wednesday morning, you will receive my stock analysis. Every Wednesday, I release a new stock analysis on my website through my newsletter, and then later on, I make a video about it in which I explain it briefly. But the letter or the analysis, the written version, is more in depth. I use more charts in it. I highlight things that I cannot highlight in a video due to, well, quite bluntly said, entertaining reasons. Speaking about a company's executive team isn't really working on YouTube, that I have seen. But you can sign up for my newsletter there, and I put a lot of energy into it. I've had great feedback on it. So if you want to read more into the earnings of different companies, get more articles or news about markets, consider subscribing both to my YouTube channel as well as to my newsletter. And with that being said, thank you for watching. Please give it a thumbs up if you like it. Again, also consider subscribing, and I hope to see you next week.